Hiya, I'm glad to see you back. If you're on YouTube, remember, click the like down below, and also you can share. It's good to share, we like to share. So don't forget, I try to give you something. It's only polite to give me something back. If you want to visit the website, www.thc.co.uk. Oh, missed the website up. www.thctc.co.uk. We were talking on the last post about assessment. Now we're going to move it on a little bit into the model of holistic well-being. This is like in business, it gives you something when you're writing your notes up to prove that you've actually delivered the session and that you've planned it. Old adage in care, if you've not written it down, it never happened. So remember, the delivery is as important as the recording and the planning side of it. You need to evidence what you're doing. So, model of holistic well-being. Let's get into these things. We call them God words. And they're terms that like to be read by our favourite people, the inspectors. They show that you're balancing your activities to the whole needs or health needs of the individuals that you're working with. So, some of the God words that we'd use would be physical well-being. Physical well-being is about your physical function, your physical health. Conditions that would affect your physical well-being would be a stroke or osteoarthritis, for example. Activities that we can use to enhance physical well-being would be seated exercise. More on that on a later post. Might be gardening, which would fall into something which I like to call as domestic activities. They're life activities that you guys do every single day. So it brings into a slightly other concept, just a little tangent for a second, but when we look at people coming into care, what's quite often happens to them is that they lose those day-to-day activities. And if you lose the opportunity to be physically active, your physical ability will decrease. So we want to try and offer them that within the activity program that we're providing, that links into their current physical ability as well. So other things we've got mental well-being. Now mental well-being is your ability to solve problems, to concentrate, your short-term memory. Classic condition that will affect that in the care environment would be dementia. As an aside, dementia, all it means is loss of mind. So I still find when I'm doing some of the training courses that there's a certain level of confusion about the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. Dementia is the cover-all term, and Alzheimer's is just a form of dementia. Over the years, for a couple of reasons, one of them is that I have a terrible memory and basically can't remember all the information that goes along with all the biological changes and everything else that happen with dementia. I found that it's more useful for me to know how to practically work with people with dementia, especially within the activities context. And again, that will be the subject of a later post, so we'll put that to one side. The next element of well-being is emotional well-being. Now, emotional well-being is affected by anxiety, by stress, by depression. They're the holy trinity of mental health, and you will normally find those with any sort of type of long-term chronic condition. And when we look into the care sector, it's not uncommon to find people with dementia, with Parkinson's, with strokes, with heart conditions, with arthritis, all long-term chronic conditions. So when we're talking about working with older people, the chances are there will be some level of anxiety or stress or depression there. The other thing that's common is grief, and depression is part of what they call the grief cycle. So grief is about loss, and sadly, as I'm probably aware, and you guys are probably aware, there's probably no one here that hasn't suffered some sort of loss in their own life and know the anguish and the pain that brings. And the grieving process is different for different people, so that can take from a year or to 10 years or to never. Some people never really get over that loss. So types of loss we've got loss of home, loss of social role, the children leaving home. So your role there changes as a parent. For some people I've had on courses, they normally cheer when I mention the idea of the kids leaving home. But some of the women, you can actually see where the children have left home. There's a grieving process that goes with that. And in the long run, loss of your own home and partner. And what you'll find, or have probably found with your work at the moment, is there's a lot of ladies in care homes who have lost their husbands. Women tend to outlive men. So the emotional part of it is quite an important part of what we do. The next thing we've got in the model of holistic wellbeing is social wellbeing, and that's about the people around you and support mechanisms you've got. So family and friends, colleagues. As you age, there's an old sort of saying that when you go to the newspapers, you no longer go to the front page, you just go straight to the obituaries to see who's gone. And you will find a lot of the people I work with, their social groups, their peer groups have shrunk. So that element of support or social capital, as it's known, is diminished, and that directly affects their health. The final one we're going to speak about is spiritual well-being. And I've had people on courses argue with me, and I'm a very hard man to argue with, to be quite honest. I agree with most people about nearly everything, just ask my wife. But when we talk about spiritual well-being, some people think it's only about, religious belief. It can be about religious belief if that's an important part of your spiritual well-being for you. Equally, it can be about sitting down watching a sunset or spending time with your family. There was the chairman of Age Concern Liverpool. If he's still floating around, I'll give him full credit. It was the best definition of spiritual well-being I've ever heard. And he said it's your internal state of bliss. It's whatever makes you happy as an individual. So that may be church or mosque or whatever else. It may be your family, spending time with your family. Equally, it could be spending time at the bookies with a can of beer in your hand, smoking a cigarette, swearing with your mates and talking about women. And for some people that's hard to accept, but what we need to think about as activity providers is that we are catering for the service user, the resident, the person in front of us, not us. And hopefully one day, if we ever end up in the same position, someone will cater for our needs then. That's a little catchment on the model of wellbeing. There's a few other bits that will go with it, and I'll give you that in the next blog. All I'm going to say to you now is don't forget to visit the site if you want to have any advice or any support. We do try and come back to people. The website is www. Is that too many W's? www.thctc.co.uk. If you happen to be on YouTube, just click below. Alright, many thanks, and I hope you have a good day. Bye bye.